Good morning, everybody. This is George once again, joining you today with HR Tech Talks. And as always, I'm always excited, but I'm especially excited and also a little bit in a better mood, somewhat of a challenging mood. And you'll find out why as we get to know our special guest today. This special guest is one of our HR Tech Award winners. And I want to remind you is right now we are still live. You can go to hrtechawards.org, hrtechawards.org, and we'll put that in the chat for everybody, for your companies to be able to sign up and learn more about the organization, learn more about the awards, and we'll be broadcasting those live here in the next month or two. And so we're excited about announcing our 2024 winners here soon in the springtime. Also, join in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from. If you have any questions for myself or the guests today, we would love to discuss those in the chat with you as we're talking about this great topic that we have today. But without further ado, I want to bring our special guest on. I just learned something very interesting. So right off the bat, after she introduces herself, I do want to talk a little bit fun talk, as we say. And so, Quincy, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your company that you work with?
I'm happy to. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's always good to do something a little bit different in the middle of your week. My name is Quincy Valencia. I joined the Harri team in late 2023 with the express remit of finding new and innovative ways to apply technology to workforce-related issues, in particular in the frontline service and hospitality industries that Harri serves. So I'm excited to be here with you. I also am a lifelong diehard, dyed-in-the-wool, no punches pulled St. Louis Cardinals baseball fan. George, how do you feel about that?
I feel very encouraged because my up-and-coming young Cubs are coming back. So, I'm excited. I feel like, as you said, and I'll just steal the line, not everybody can be right. And so I'm hoping that this year, I'm hoping this year is the year for the Cubs to get it right again. We had 1 year in the last 100 something. I know the Cardinals have had a handful or so. But you know what? I will say this. There's one thing I really love about St. Louis, and it's
pizza.
It's a restaurant. No, it's called Pappy's Smokehouse. I got to meet the owner there. I actually ran into one of your St. Louis Cardinals players there about 8 or 9 years ago.
Nice.
The best barbecue in America, in my opinion. As a barbecue snob, it's definitely top 2, but it's not number 2, in my opinion.
Good to know. I'll have to check it out. I don't think I've been there. I haven't lived in St. Louis for quite some time, but similar to if you're a Cubby, you're a Cardinal. From birth to death. So who I am.
That is true. Can you tell us a little bit, as people are learning about Harri, can you tell us a little bit about some of the problems your technology solves? And then I want to get really deep into this conversation, really of employee engagement focus, and be able to give some content to our audience today. But can you tell us a little bit about Harri?
Yep, for sure. So Harri exists primarily to serve that frontline service industry worker and the employers who employ them, the organizations who employ them. And if you ask any operator in that space, there are really 3 primary challenges. It boils down to 3 that when left unserved and when left unmet, really have the business or the potential to kill your business, quite frankly. And so the first is hiring. So when you're looking in that frontline space, when the process and the technology and the interview and the hiring is overly complex or it takes too long, your candidates will abandon. They will leave you. They will go down the road to somebody who makes it easier. It really is quite that simple. And yet, if you go and apply for one of these jobs today, the processes invariably are long and complex, and it just doesn't make any sense. On the flip side of that, every minute that your hiring manager takes recruiting and hiring is a minute that they take off of their floor. It leads to operational inefficiency, and it's a direct tie to a loss of sales. So hiring is quite difficult to attract the right people, to find the right people, and really just to get them through the process. It's quite an undertaking. So that's first. And that actually brings us to the next major issue for these operators, which is retention. So turnover is probably the single most pervasive problem that faces any operator in any frontline service industry. It's very expensive to find the right candidate. It's very time consuming to find the right candidate. We already talked about that. It takes your managers off the floor. And yet in this industry, on average, turnover annually is 130 to 150%. That is enormous. And half of those are going to leave you in the first 90 days. So they're not even fully productive. So you're taking all of your time and money to get people on board, and they're leaving you before they're even fully productive, which actually equals a net loss. So employers have got to find a way to bring on the right people and to keep them. And it's not that hard. And we're going to get into more of that later. It's really quite simple. People are leaving for three primary reasons. And you think it's pay, and that's some of it, but people are paying about the same. That's not really it. They're leaving because their schedule isn't right. They're leaving because they don't get the amount of hours that they're supposed to get. And they're leaving because they don't like their manager. They feel unheard and unseen by their manager. About what? About their schedule, about their hours, about their training. So it's not rocket science, but organizations need ways to know what the issues are and to address these issues, to properly manage their workforce, to hear them, to engage them and grow them. So retention is a big issue. And then the third is compliance. So compliance actually is a pervasive issue for our operators, and lack of compliance poses significant reputational and financial risk. So understanding what those risks are, the rate and pace at which new legislation is being introduced specifically for this type of workforce is really difficult to keep up with, to know what it is. Businesses want to do the right thing. They just don't necessarily always know what it is. It's hard to keep up with. And so Harri addresses that for them as well.
Yeah, so you have shared a lot in that, and I want to break a lot of this down and really kind of give as much, because our conversations we've had over the last week or so, I've learned a lot from you, and really it aligns with a lot of the research that we're doing as well. And so it makes a lot of sense what you're saying to me. My light bulbs, and as Ben say, he's excited about this because I'm gonna talk about data. He likes to word data, and so there it goes. I said it twice in one sentence.
Yeah.
Let's break this down. What are some unexpected factors that really influence just the employee engagement side and the retention? Because that's something that people are saying, hey, how do we keep our employees engaged? Because if they're engaged, that impacts the performance, and the engagement is a direct connection maybe with their leadership. You talked about having a sense of belonging and staying in that retention piece. When we talk about belonging, the psychological definition is I feel respected, accepted, and appreciated by my direct leader, right? And so you're specifically, Harri, one of the larger clients you're working with is in the hospitality space. Can you talk about, even in just that industry and that space, what unexpected factors influence that employee engagement and retention?
Well, I mean, here's the big reveal, I think, George, is that it's not really unexpected. It's not that hard. I think we overcomplicate it. People feel engaged when they feel heard. People feel engaged when they have the opportunity to interact on a positive level with their direct manager. People feel engaged when they're, like I said before, their shift pattern matches what they were hired for, when their number of hours match what they were hired for. And again, employers want to do the right thing. They don't want to be stuck in this cycle. They don't want to be stuck turning people over again. They want to make sure that their employees are feeling trained within their first critical 90 days. That's what gets people excited. You join a place because it's, hey, I'm going to have a new job. Everybody's excited when you accept that offer and you're going to show up the first day. And if you show up and you don't have the equipment you're supposed to have, or your uniform, or you're supposed to make this burger and nobody told you how to properly make the burger to the company standards, and then you don't have really anybody to talk to, it's allowing people a forum and an opportunity to voice those things and then have action taken on that is what it takes to improve that retention rate. It really isn't that unexpected. It's not that hard. The challenge, though, is having the right forum and the right, frankly, technology for employees to give that feedback, and then taking action on that feedback. Gone are the days of let's do should be gone, an annual employee sentiment survey, and then we're going to take 2 quarters to calculate it and calibrate it, and then another 2 quarters to come up with an action plan, and then it's a year later already, and none of it makes any sense. It's really important that you're getting all of that information in real time, and that your managers are empowered to take action on that. And then above that, because sometimes, unfortunately, it's that direct manager who may be the cause of the problem, the leadership has to have purview into that as well, the leadership beyond that manager, so that they have the opportunity to take action. Really quickly, this is a perfect example. One of the clients that I'm working really directly with on our new product called Engage, which works specifically to gather that feedback to help improve overall retention, but really that critical first 90 days. We had an employee who surfaced an issue that we saw And it seemed very, very serious, and they were tired of not being heard, and there were some challenges, and they were actually threatening legal action, but they didn't get into any detail. We surfaced that to their leadership and this project that we're managing the feedback closely on. And leadership went and talked to this employee, and I kid you not, their primary issue was that they needed 2 more trash bins in their workstation in order to be most effective and optimize their work and be the most productive. 2 trash bins. So we went from an employee who felt so upset and so disengaged that they were going to quit, and they were looking at legal action for different things. And they really solved the problem by giving them 2 new trash bins. I mean, how powerful is it's not that hard. You have to give the employees the opportunity and forum and venue to voice these things. And then you have to, as leadership, be committed to following up on those.
Yes, it sounds like the challenge and disconnect of effectively communicating, right? Like how do you communicate to your employees, and or do you know the language that your employees are speaking to be able to find out those details to that small problem, as you said, just trash bins been added to it really changes dynamic. When it comes to that, I just want to ask a question. When it comes to those challenges, communication, for instance, where do you see the underlying issue? Is it management not connecting with the employee or engaging with the employee to know, hey, George doesn't verbally communicate well. His feelings are what he's looking for, and sometimes he checks out. Is it the leader knowing what how George communicates? Is it the employee side to say, hey, this is how I deal with communication? I may email you if that's okay, or I may send a message in our team's platform that we may have to share communication because I verbally don't know how to communicate. And maybe some of it's fear of, hey, I can't give feedback to my manager because I'm fearful that they're going to turn it around, and so I just check out on that. One of the things I always say is if we as leaders don't check in with employees, eventually the people will check out. But how do we fill that gap of communication?
I think it's all of those things. So I don't even know how to break it down. I think it's all of those things. I think certainly providing a forum and venue. You've been in a sandwich shop at lunch rush. Nobody, the manager's slicing meat. I mean, where do they literally have time away from the day in their clock to have a place and a space to even voice any challenges they're having? They get in, they're working hard, manager's working hard. And then before my shift's over, my manager has to run to the store down the road to fill in something down there. So it's actually physically having the opportunity to have a face-to-face conversation is just sometimes difficult. That's just part of the operational realities with some of these businesses. So having a forum and a place and a venue where they can do that. Second is there's been a general erosion, and you guys have done some research, I believe, but there's also pretty, widely published information. There's been an erosion of workplace trust. And some of it is because of this. So you have things you want to say, you can't get in touch with your manager. You do, and they don't address it in a timely manner, and so on and so forth. So there's been an erosion of workplace trust. And so there has to be another level that can have purview into some of this information as well, which is why formal data collection is really important. And where's the best place to do that? How about at the time clock? Because every employee is clocking in and out. And we've actually pioneered that here at Harri as well, because you're not expecting them to go on a nap in their off time to give that feedback that they have that's really important. So I think the most important thing is giving them that venue, creating and fostering an environment where they feel comfortable. And if they don't, knowing that someone else is seeing that information too, so that they can then intervene when necessary to try and fill in the blanks of what's actually going on in that organization. I mean, have you seen something different in the customers that you work with?
Oh, no, not all. That's really aligned with what you're saying exactly on that end. What about some of the going back into the hospitality, because there's a lot of maybe lack of clarification or often facing those misconceptions about the opportunities they have both in the career and growth, potentially for themselves. I always believe that if we invest in our people, a better George, a better Quincy is a better, healthier employee for our business. But in hospitality, they face a lot of misconceptions and lack of clarity on the career opportunities and growth plans and potential that they may have. How can industries like hospitality or even retail? I used to own 18 retail stores, be a part of an 18 retail chain. And there was always misconceptions about growth and development. I'm getting hired as a tech. Is there anything more? How can the industry effectively showcase some development opportunities to their team to be able to? You talk about retention. Back on that retention piece, how can we do that for the long haul? Don't want to lose a great employee like Quincy, or a George that has a lot of potential, and we can see that we can develop that into that. What can be done there?
So this can go from the really simple, I think, again, to the more complex, but let's start with the simple. First and foremost, people in leadership positions in these organizations need to be present and visible. So and tell their stories. So we know that in hospitality, especially, people who ascend through the ranks, whether it be in the store side, the operational side, or whether it be up eventually into the corporate side, a large percentage, more than in many other industries, come from the ranks. You have a strong bench. You started as, we've all heard the stories. The CEO of Walmart, the former CEO, started as a cart pusher, as a part-time job, and then ascended the ranks, right? So you start, you become visible, you listen to your employees, you share your own stories if you're in leadership. That's first. And then people start to connect the dots. Well, perhaps that's something I could do, but they don't really know how that could possibly happen. So ask them. Some people join these organizations as a stopgap, as something temporary, as a second job or whatever, and that's fine. We need people in these roles who don't have longer term career aspirations, or who don't have, the ability to move, or have the desire to move up. That's okay too, but a lot of them do, and we want them. So ask them. I mean, that's really pretty simple. We did that recently with a client. We actually put out the question through one of our what we call touch points that we ask again at the clock. And it's, hey, do you see this place as somewhere that you would like to and have the ability to grow your career? And so we're actually gathering that right now, and we're getting some really interesting results there. Employees are being uncovered that no one ever would have guessed. It's always the quiet one, right? But who's that has that service mindset and customer mindset and business mindset that you didn't even know? So ask them. And then here's the more complex. There are technologies that exist, and as we'd previously talked a little bit offline, George, about some trends that we're seeing. And one of the big technological trends overall, of course, that's been ubiquitous is applied generative AI and applied more advanced AI in the organization. And the providers and then organizations are trying to find ways to apply that in ways that are meaningful and impactful from a business standpoint, and not just sort of the shiny new toy. And one of the ways I've seen that done be most effective, and that's coming out more and more, vendors are coming out with products that will do this, is taking all the data, the behavioral data, the clock punching data, the meeting data, all of the different things, and analyzing where people are spending their time in their days because of the computing power that we have now that we didn't used to have. And then distilling that down into some actionable insights, down to an audience of one, that extreme personalization. So using the technology to detect patterns of success, patterns of disengagement, and then feeding that back to the people that it really matters. So those managers, so that they can see it and say, hey, you might want to talk to George. He's missed 2 days of his past 6 shifts, and he has never done that before. We know that is an indicator of intent to leave based on macro data that's out there. So ask employees, give them a forum to come back, show them, model for them that you can move up in an organization, but then use the tech that's now available that never used to be, to identify some patterns in case someone doesn't maybe feel comfortable or even know that, hey, this is something I might want to do.
Yeah, that's so good. We have a thing we call RSVP, and so we encourage a lot of our clients that I'm working with on leadership development side to really check in with their employees. Go back to the quote: if you don't check your employees, they'll check out.
Yep.
And we always encourage them to use this quarterly check-in. And really, you should be checking with your employees more than just quarterly. But this is a set schedule for you and that team member quarterly to check in about RSVP. R's for roles. Has anything changed about your role that I don't know? Maybe you are like George and you like to help other people out, and all of a sudden you've added more work and responsibility onto your job. And then, what does it look like? Is there something that you need to change about your role? Are there resources that we need to provide you? Is there some strategy? What do you need from me as a leader? So this is really a time for the employee to really assess the situation and do most of the talking. S is for strengths. Are you using your strengths? Is there a disconnect? We're not asking if you're using your strengths because we want to get more from you. We want to make sure that what you love to do is tied and connected to what you do on a daily basis. So your why that you're bringing to the table aligns with what we do as a company and organization. And that helps that person stay engaged. Talking about engagement, if they're not using something that they're passionate about, that they're strong at doing, it's a disconnect there. And then V is values. Does your values still align with the company's values? This is part of the interview process, making sure that, hey, beyond our core values, we call them promises, but beyond our core values or promises that we have, we want to make sure your values mean something too. And we want to respect those values. Are we doing those things? And then P is purpose. What is your purpose? Are you still being able to live that purpose? And that's the why to what they do, and being able to give them that connection. So when I think about those things and what you're saying, I'm thinking about, how can leaders really go beyond collecting data, beyond collecting, more paperwork and document about George as an employee? How can we create meaningful change to improve that employee experience? When we talk about, again, it goes back to retention. When I think about retention, I'm thinking, what have we done? What have we invested in our people to keep them engaged, to keep them feeling like they have a seat at the table as an employee, where they have a voice? Constructive feedback, however you want to say it, is important and valued here, and we're engaged with them. How do you change that employee experience from that standpoint?
That it's so true. Everything that you're saying is true. And I'm running through my mind of examples that reflect back exactly what it is you're talking about. The type of program and the RSVP that you just talked about, I think, is becoming, thankfully, more ubiquitous in corporate environments, but still less so. There's still a disconnect between that frontline service worker, I think, and the ability and the acknowledgement of the need to have that sort of conversation with those workers. And yet, off the top of my head, talking about the Engage product that we launched, which really touches base with those employees on whatever cadence you want to, directly at the time clock, to gauge their sentiment and even get some open-ended feedback from them. And we had one that identified recently that he was actually doing, you talked about role, this gentleman was actually doing some of the work of his GM. He specified some of those things. He didn't mind doing it, but he wasn't getting acknowledged. He wasn't asked if he wanted to do it. He wasn't getting compensated for it. So we were able to surface that. He surfaced it, and we were able to share that then with the senior leadership. And mind you, with this, mostly the senior leadership can look themselves. We're doing some special sort of white glove projects for some of our clients as proof points for what it is that we're saying to be true. Another is, looking at simply being asked. Some of the feedback that we're getting just on, hey, how do you feel about having the opportunity to provide some of this feedback, is almost word for word what we asked. How do you feel about this Engage program? And we're hearing overwhelmingly the responses back are, thank you for asking my opinion. I feel like the owners of the business and my GM care about me. I feel heard for the first time. Can you imagine that relief that someone felt, or the positivity that they felt to take the time to type that in, which is great. And especially in that, it's important over the course of the lifetime of someone's career, without question. Particularly the longer they stay, the more apt they are to move into some of those roles. You're building your bench, right? But in that first critical 90 days in hospitality, where they lose and you're losing productivity and you're losing sales, one organization we're working with in the 12 months prior to implementation of a formal program, to gather this feedback, of those terminated, 68% were terminated within their first 90 days. Since the inception of this program, that's dropped to 19%.
Wow.
Because they're asking, and then it's in front of them what the issues are, and they know immediately what to address and what to intervene. To your point, George, we can gather all the information that we want to, but if nobody does anything about it, it's a pointless exercise. So gathering information and then distilling it down to what those key themes and issues are, down to an audience of one, so that someone has the opportunity to intervene, can make all the difference in a business, particularly in those where your employees are facing your customer. That drives guest experience, and guest experience drives sales.
Yeah, that's so good. Couple more questions as we get to the wrap up. Time is flying by, and I'm I got so many more questions I want to ask you and talk about. Maybe we'll do a part two a little bit later, but when it comes to the frontline managers, we talk about equipping and we talk about, hey, do you have everything that you need? Do you have the resources? Do you have the necessary skills or tools to really champion your team that's with you? How can companies ensure that frontline managers have those necessary tools to be able to be equipped, and how does that align with maybe what you provide, Harri, as a software and a company in itself?
Well, first and foremost, before you get to any technology, you have to identify what those skills and competencies are that you really need in your business. What aligns with your promise, your customer promise, your guest promise, your brand promise? What are those skills and competencies that they need to deliver that? So that's first and foremost. You'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't, but many people would be surprised to know how many really haven't defined that. So that's first and foremost. And then there are ways to identify, again, with technology, where are those gaps? Where do those gaps lie? So if you need to be at an advanced level of communication, and you're identifying that your particular manager is maybe at a mid-level, how do you identify that? And there's technology to help that. People can also self-identify. Managers can identify that. And then what opportunities do you have for training and performance enhancement to help close those gaps? So that's number two. And then, I think, again, with Harri, we have, if you're properly managing your performance, which we offer the tools and skills and abilities to do that, and then you implement the proper tools so that people can very quickly and easily and small and digestible way take small portions of opportunity to enhance and build on those skills. Watch a video, take a quiz, apply it in your learning, answer questions about it, and then have their leadership again follow it with them to make sure that that's sticking. That's much more likely to stick in an opportunity in an environment where you don't have 3 weeks to take out to go to some school. You have to be there applying your business. Give people small chunks of training and learning opportunity where they can digest it and apply it, digest it and apply it, so it becomes natural and rote for them.
Awesome. Maybe one last question, maybe two. First one, is there what's on your heart? 2024, we're knocking at the door of the first quarter, already been done.
I can't believe it.
It's going by fast. What's on your heart personally, and maybe even professionally with Harri, that you're really passionate about, focused on, making sure that people know, as they're moving along this year, to close out 2024 and restart, refresh, however they are in their business right now, professionally or individually. But what's on your heart? What's something that you're very focused on for this year, maybe Harri as well?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Nobody's asked me that, so thanks for asking. I think for me, as I look at my own life and then how that again applies in my workplace, because for me those two things are very closely intertwined. It's finding ways to do things that are meaningful and get meaning and purpose out of what you're doing. So whether that's, I'm taking golf lessons. I've never played golf. I've never picked up a golf club in my entire life, but it seems like I live in Myrtle Beach, the golf capital of the United States. I should probably learn how to play golf. So it's finding that, that might be something that I can, get some physical activity. That's debatable. Learn something new, do something with my husband who loves to golf. That applies in the workplace as well. Not golf. Please, God, don't make me play golf as part of my work thing. But what do? I left, and I said I joined Harri in 2020, late 2023. I left a really good organization and a really fun job doing something I'd never done before, because my heart wants what it wants, and it's drawn back to this hospitality and frontline space. That's where I've spent much of my career. Like you, I spent quite a bit of time in retail. The pandemic showed us that these frontline workers really do drive our economy and are often unrecognized and underrepresented. And the businesses that employ them are left foundering sometimes, particularly franchise organizations who don't have necessarily, the smaller ones who don't have the resources of some of the corporations. And so it's drawn back into product. And it's what I said. You said, what do I do? I joined this organization that focuses in the industry that's most important to me at this stage of my career. I've been around 5 minutes or so, that focuses on those businesses that really are driving our economy and the people that work there. And it's the majority of our population works in some sort of hourly paid position. So what can we do that's going to impact their work lives? We spend a ton of time at work. And so as much as people want to segment and separate work and life, the trend has been work-life, not balance, but integration. How can we do things and apply the technology and the cool new stuff in a way that's going to impact the lives of those people who are best driving our economy, which sounds kind of big and maybe lofty, but it's really true. So I think humans need to find work and find activities and find things that really feed their heart, like you said, which sounds corny when I say it, but sounded kind of cool when you said it. And go with what, where you can at the end of the day say, I really think maybe something that we did made a difference.
Yeah, that's I like to call bringing your soul to work, where you're able to align why with the what and really lead with the heart. That's truly impactful. I appreciate you sharing that. And I love every bit of it. Myrtle Beach is one of my favorite places to visit. So next time I come, I might have to, give a shout out. Maybe we go hit a smaller par 3, shorter course, and relax a little bit.
Only if you don't make fun of me verbally.
That's fine. That's fine.
You can do whatever you want in your head.
I'm like a St. Louis Cardinals fan. It'll be perfectly fine.
Okay, great.
At the end, I will love you. Lead with love. Where can people find more about yourself and Harri as far as information goes and be able to connect?
Yep. So harri.com, of course, is a place to go. And certainly our profile on LinkedIn. We have everyone here seems to post pretty prolifically. We have so much research and so much knowledge and so much feedback from our clients and our partners and our analyst partners and marketing partners. It's a lot of fun. So a lot of research there. And then feel free to connect with me directly on LinkedIn. It's Quincy Valencia. Or you can always email me, quincy.valencia@harri.com.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you, Quincy, for your time. I appreciate you staying a little bit longer with me today. And I believe that our audience are excited about this. So thank you so much for joining us here on HR Tech Talks.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, stay tuned to the next episode. I'm so grateful. Thank you for joining us today as well, audience, on HR Tech Talks. A lot of things that Quincy said and what Harri does, I'm excited about. I love their platform. I believe that there's a lot of great things that you can use, your organization or company can use. So check out Harri as well with more information. Check them out online as well as on LinkedIn. As she mentioned, again, the website that you can find more information about Harri is harri.com. That's HARRI.com to find out more about their platform and mention maybe that you heard Quincy speaking here on HR Tech Talks. If you go there for a discovery call, we appreciate that so much. Once again, for all those, hrawards.org is coming up. We're going to be having our awards here in the next few months, and we're excited about that as well. So check that out, techawards.org. Also, make sure that you tune in to our website. Don't forget to sign up every week. The scroll at the bottom right now, you can see it. For HR Tech Talks, if you want more information about when our next one is coming, you'll get notified there. You can also find out more information about our futures Tech Talks as well as the past. If you want to go back and maybe check out this one once again, we appreciate that as well. So thank you again for joining us here and myself on HR Tech Talks. Until next time, my friends, always remember to bring your soul to work.